So did you guys see in yesterday's news at all, even though, I keep my pulse on the world of gig economy and we obviously don't structure this podcast or around all that, but I do like to put in tidbits when I can. So we're going to put in a few this week about some different countries and what's going on. Specifically this one here, Australia, the Uber trips and food delivery platforms are about to skyrocket under the Labor's Industrial Relations Bill. That is a bill that's been going on for a while there. And why is it important if we don't live in Australia? I think it's important to keep up on all the gig markets and what they're doing, because eventually, look, we're moving to a gig economy world. There will still be other, obviously, older school forms of earning, but we know the gig market is the most booming market that there is, and it covers so much that of course it is, but it's also the most I guess I'll say it like this, it's the most paced with technology, which is probably outpacing itself as it is. Technology is moving quicker than we should have it moving. We're trying to move to AI too quickly. We're not, it's blowing my mind. All these things that happen, it's crazy because we've always been very careful about integrating things. And these days I just feel like we're like, hey, AI, that works. Chatbot. Okay. Do ChatGPT. There, no more writers, this, that, the other. I feel like we're just willing to just try things. And yet it was Albert Einstein who said that what he feared most about the future was when technology surpassed human beings. Like he knew that time would come. And I think that it's like the Industrial Revolution. I feel like we're in that time right now. Like it hasn't happened yet, but we're getting like precursors to it. And we can see signs that we're about to have this happen to us. But in Australia, the Labor's Industrial Relations Bill. So now they have made it so, I mean, we'll see what comes, but Uber and even DoorDash is over there. Unlike a lot of the other countries that don't have DoorDash, they have, Just Eat or, Deliveroo or some of those. But they do actually have Uber and DoorDash over there. And like what the PRO Act was trying to do here, or what some states even might try and do, I don't think they'll try and take it as far, but they want it to be a minimum wage job. The Industrial Relations Bill is in place. In the latest attack on Labor's bill, which has already been savaged basically by the nation's big miners and digital platforms, and that includes Uber and DoorDash. But they're all warning the plan for minimum pay and conditions for delivery drivers is going to send their prices skyrocketing. So skyrocketing meaning like to the customers. So if the customers are going to have to pay 185 to 225% more than they have been, I don't know about in Australia, but here it's already very expensive to use these platforms. If you're going to double plus what it's going to cost, I think you're going to find more people not using it. And that goes for rideshare too. I think in rideshare, it might be a little easier to digest if they find ways to maneuver with that too. But in the food platforms, it's going to be very apparent because we already, even in Australia, people know they're overpaying for this stuff. They know that they can go pick it up themselves. It is literally, I mean, we've debated this a few times on this podcast, on the roundtable. Is it a necessity? And I think that stems from the pandemic when it was a necessity. I mean, look, we were on stay-at-home orders, and immunocompromised people who were sick or who thought they might be sick, there were so many people that were caught into a net where going to the store was, for many people, undoable or very dangerous. And it became a necessity for a while. Now we have Kroger's offering for, $5 in a refrigeration truck, you can use all your coupons, everything, get in-store prices. So there's some tweaks starting to happen to the gig economy and how it will move forward. So it still will allow that for those people who need it. In fact, Instacart has taken on SNAP and EBT, and they have SNAP benefits for all the states now, which nobody's ever done before. I do feel like this will even hurt Instacart drivers even more. But, everything's being redefined. But in Australia, for them to move to this, it's not even like New York's. New York did this with rideshare. We've talked about it. They did it with the food, and now they're pulling it again. New York never really, or when anything like that happens in New York, we always try and follow what happens with it. And it's always a situation of the platforms fighting it to the T. Even once it's passed, filing other lawsuits, they come up with a date to start it. They always don't start it then, and they file another lawsuit, even if it's been shot down 18 ways from Sunday. And now they're supposed to be paying the delivery drivers X amount, and they're already starting to they're already kind of pushing that off. No, it's like they literally keep. It's like the government and the laws of the states are there saying, this is how it is now, deal with it. And they're like, all right. And then when it comes time to cash or cut the checks, it's like these platforms are sitting on the other side of the aisle, flipping off all the politicians in the states and going, hey man, you really thought we were going to do that? You idiot. And I don't know. I mean, in some ways, it's half comical, but when you look at it from our perspective of being a gig worker, it's not that comical. And these things really do just hurt. We already proved it in New York. Floor meets ceiling. People who were huge earners earned less when they put that into place for rideshare drivers. And the rideshare drivers who were cherry picking, or, to a degree that they were almost like sitting in their living room waiting for orders, they had to be paid a certain amount, which was taking away from the hustlers. See, it's like working in a bar. Okay. Like you can probably, any of us could go get a job waiting tables at an Applebee's or at Chili's outside of a downtown area. And maybe even be trained as a bartender if you have no experience. But can you go into the city and be across the street from Coors Field, where I was for many, many, many years? And can you handle bartending down there on an island bar where you can only have 3 bartenders rolling around each other, and that's tough enough? It's 3 deep. You need to know how to make all the drinks. Can you do that? No. Night and day difference. As a bartender at Chili's, unless it's Friday night, you probably have 2 to 5 people sitting at the bar at 9, 10 o'clock. The waitresses have some tables still, but it's not a place you'd bank. So, if they start trying to make that pay where those people are, and they actually did this in Maine, and my home state of Michigan was looking to implement this too. And luckily it got shot down, that the same thing as this, that everybody be paid a minimum wage of like $14-15 an hour, no matter which one you worked at, which was going to put all the coolest bars out of business. Because the coolest bars, they don't payroll is what crushes companies. That's a company ender right there. So the coolest bars, I mean, we even in the United States have an understanding of this. We understand that, you might have a $12, $13 minimum wage in your state, but even the federal minimum wage of $7.75. But being a bartender, your minimum wage can be like $4 an hour. They actually have a math that goes under the federal minimum wage, and it goes, way under your states, that is the minimum wage for service workers. I mean, I remember in late 2007 or 8, servers in Colorado were paid $2.13 an hour because they know you're going to make tips. So to me, it's like, that's the kind of thing we should be shooting for. All these kind of bills that say we need to be paid minimum wage, this is going to destroy these companies, but also it's going to kill off the customer base. It's going to decrease the volume of orders, therefore, and we still have just mass oversaturation of workers in every market. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a few problems here with my microphone today. It keeps shorting out, at least in my ear. Hope I'm watching the audio track. It doesn't look to be failing, but in case it is, I will do my best to clean it up. It's something with the connection on my mic. I was playing with it. It took me a while to get this started, and that's why today's dropped a little late, by the way. So hopefully you guys can bear with the microphone issue, and hopefully I can get it out using the cleanup process here. Again, I am understanding it's already going to drop late, but the crackling that I'm hearing, I'm not really sure. Hopefully I can clean it up because I was looking at the WAV file here, and there is a little bit of static. But anyway, let's keep rolling, and I'll work with it when I'm done to try and get it as clean as I can for you guys. But moving to Argentina, let's hit on two more spots in the world before we bring it back to the U.S. Hitting on Argentina, Argentina's gig workers are rallying against regulation. Listen to that, same as us here, and supporting the libertarian candidate. So, courted by Javier Milei and his party, delivery workers worry about new regulations on gig platforms. So, activist gig workers are handing out ballots and campaign materials as part of their delivery runs. That's something different, for sure. We don't really see that here. Instead, Uber or DoorDash or whatever, when it comes to the certain states, just has us check a box that we're on board with wanting flexibility, which is, in essence, the same. They want the same things that we want here. The flexibility to work. All countries differ in how this is. So take it with a grain of salt, because unless you live in Argentina, there are tweaks and little differences. But at the same time, the overall picture is they want the flexibility to work when they want. They want to basically, look, it's undefined, but we know that often I do the comparison. So let's compare it to being a small business owner, a freelancer, an independent contractor. Maybe that's a journalist, maybe that's a illustrator, maybe that's a interpreter. Who knows? Maybe it's a musician of sorts. But we all want the ability to work when and where we want. And I think that comes with age too. Look, I mean, a lot of people, like I've said many times, people don't go to work out of college anymore right into Ford and then retire with Ford 40 years later. That's very rare that people would spend an entire career start to end with a company. In fact, it's almost unheard of. Often the companies sell out to other companies in the mergers, people get let go, this, that, the other. I mean, I think there's a big concern on the value of college these days. Listen, if you're going to be a surgeon or if you're going to be a lawyer, of course you need to go to college because you need that degree to be able to practice law. And yeah, you might be able to go past the bar and be a lawyer, maybe. Would college provide you that much more? I don't know. I've never been to law college. I do have a couple of amazingly close friends who have gone into legal, and whatever their path might have been, I have learned quite a bit from them, and I feel like they are people who took a lot away from college. Obviously, to be a surgeon or a doctor or things of that nature, you need to go to college as well. But I do question the value of college these days to just the average person looking for a job. I've said myself, if you at all have an idea, and I know a lot of times they almost have, I feel like they've wanted us to go into college and said, oh, your first few years, you'll figure it out. No, if you have an idea of if you love fixing cars, well, go to a tech school and learn to fix cars in 18 months. It's a way better deal. You're not going to be in debt for 10 to 15 years to a college. And the hiring rate out of trade schools is way higher than out of colleges these days because that old W-2 model doesn't exist. So moving on to Argentina, though, real quick. So, a lot of this is done on bike work there. Their two biggest delivery apps are Pedidos Ya and Rappi. They are both delivery companies that are primarily bicycles. But they have these people not just checking a box and saying, yes, I want to stay independent contractor. Please, don't take that away from me, blah, blah, blah. That's not, and check this box if you agree, and then they just add you to a list. Here, they're actually having the people who are doing the deliveries handing out pamphlets saying, listen, if you want to keep getting these deliveries, you're going to need to vote for this candidate. And so it's just different to see, but it's interesting to see at the same time, too, that it's that same super small percentage that are the ones saying, hey, make us employees. We want to be employees. No matter where in the world we go with this, for the most part, it's the same story. It's like 5% of the people doing the work want to be employees, but they're the only 5% making noise. And if that's the case, well, then, of course, the politicians are only thinking that's all we hear from. I'm surprised that, like, we know all this and we talk about this kind of stuff, but politicians aren't aware of this. Like, if I were to be thrown into a political position right now and I had, gig worker people coming at me. Now, I know I have a lot more experience in this realm too to know, but with anything, if something started hitting me hard and saying, hey, listen, we want to be employees, blah, 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 and I knew that it was a big space like the gig economy, I would definitely have teams or, put study groups together, focus groups, things, use my assistants wisely to have them look into, okay, we're hearing a lot about this, I understand, and we're not hearing from the other side that they would like to remain independent, but can we get an idea of how many people, like let's say in the state of Colorado, 5,000 wrote in that they want to be employees, or 1,000. I would want to have a study conducted saying, hey, let's find out how many gig workers there are in Colorado. And then you find out that there's 200,000. And then you start thinking, wait a minute, maybe it's like everything else in politics and only the people who are mad are writing in. Because you need to please your constituents, but a lot of constituents never voice their concerns. So here, people are getting pretty old school guerrilla tactics about wanting to stay independent. They have different terms for it down there. So excuse me while I'm just trying to, put this into the right terms here. But like inflation year to year in Buenos Aires, we're going to use Buenos Aires as the backdrop here, is 138% year over year. Their value of their money has decreased. Disastrous economy, even worse than ours, guys. I mean, they actually are having a very tough time down there. And then just to put into some perspective, so Buenos Aires is a very big city. Okay. I mean, for Argentina, hands down, it is the largest city. I'm even trying to think off the top of my head if there's a city half its size in Argentina. And if you know geography at all, Argentina is a big country for sure. But I don't even think there's another town half the size of Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is huge. And there are 20,000 gig workers in the city of Buenos Aires. So if that puts some perspective into it for you, I mean, that's looking at like how a lot of big cities are here too. So, but they're definitely like, the people doing the work are as interested in taking the political flyers and putting them into the bags and meeting with the politicians who don't want these regulations. They go to meetings to meet with them. They get these pamphlets, they put it in there. Do we do that? No. Do we care that much? No. We just click boxes. Sure. Yeah, I want to stay flexible, put whatever. And really you're agreeing to these DoorDash terms where is Argentina's way better? I don't know. But one thing for sure, there is a relationship between the politicians and the gig workers, which is something we don't have here at all. And that was even apparent this summer when we did the town hall. Okay. So, I mean, we had a senator there. We had, a state house representative there who tried to push a bill through that would, basically was more about transparency than pay. But then we had a senator there who had no clue. What we need is some kind of hyper version of this, or, like a hybrid of, look, if DoorDash is once your state's going on the attack and you get a checkbox from DoorDash saying, can we count on you? Do you want to stay flexible? Because otherwise you can't stay flexible. And you click that box and they do it before lunch because they know that you're not going to read it. And you just say, yes, of course I agree. Just let me dash now. Okay, so now you did that. And now they have your name to put onto a list and say, hey, here's all but what they really should be doing is politicians should be reaching out to gig workers. We shouldn't have to form and reach out to them. Our politicians definitely do not understand the gig economy. They do not understand the gig platform worker. But let's be serious here. They definitely understand independent contractors, or at least most of them. I would think there is not many elected officials who don't understand that 1/3 of the American workforce is self-employed / independent contractor. Because if you don't understand that, then you have no right being in political office. So at that point, I think they just kind of think, I'm not really sure where these gig workers fall. Should we make them? But really, they should be meeting with us. And it shouldn't be us having to track them down. I know that a lot of times we say, write your politicians. And you should. But a lot of people won't. And that's a fact. And because of that, we really need to try and get these politicians to have meetings with us, their constituents, and invite all of us, though, so that they hear from the side that doesn't want to be an employee. Because if you produced a meeting that was going to be a half-hour long, like community town meeting or whatever, or 45 minutes long on a certain day in Denver, I'd be there. I know a lot of other people would be who want to remain independent, do not want employee status. Yet the only thing the politicians see are that we want employee status from emails. So for the time being, just remember, all you have to do is get on Google, or you can go to driverrights.org, driver singular, rights.org. And on there, you can click that you'd like to add your name to our 70,000+ nationwide. But you can also click that you want to email your politician. But you can click, who is my senator, and put in your zip code on Google, and it'll tell you. And usually in that first Google result, or the second one of the two, there's a direct link that says email them, and we'll launch your email for you. So, I mean, literally, guys, it's not very hard. Do it. Take 5. I mean, look, especially like if you're a multi-apper who sits in the car in certain hours, it's kind of slow. Just do it during some of that downtime. It doesn't have to be but 2 or 3 sentences. Just say, I'm a gig worker in this zip code. You're my representative. I want to remain independent. I do not want to be an employee. Keep it short, keep it simple, and say my vote will go to the person running who represents these values of me being allowed to be independent. Again, I keep going back to it. I honestly believe the biggest fault that we ever made was not giving the definition to the app-based gig economy before we started wanting legislation for it everywhere. Now, that said, we'll work our way back up through South and Central America and getting back to the United States, and we'll stop in Brazil this time. So underage gig workers keep outsmarting facial recognition. In Brazil, delivery apps are now asking customers to report child delivery workers. So a couple of points here. The largest last mile delivery apps in Brazil employ facial recognition to fight child labor on their platforms. Like here, you need to be 18 years or older to work on a delivery platform or any platforms. Minors have found ways to circumvent checks, so companies also rely on reports made by customers in restaurants. In most cases, customers and restaurant employees don't report minor workers to avoid causing them trouble or because they are not sure of their age. So again, remember, we're talking about different countries. So you're whichever state you live in the United States, we're used to a certain way of how things are dealt with, you know. I mean, obviously a red and blue state might take a look at things differently, or a purple state, but we really kind of have a somewhat symmetry of how the system works. In Brazil, it is much different. So Eduardo Montarare, who manages delivery logistics at a burger shop in just north of Sao Paulo, has noticed a pattern. Every time an order pickup is assigned to a female driver, there's an 80+% chance the worker is a minor. That's pretty crazy. So first of all, we're talking about a gender, like why all the females instead of males as well? And why is he so, and I mean, he's not being sexist here, but why is he found a metric with the female drivers? But regardless, so what is it? Where is it here? Okay. So delivery work in Brazil is only legal for people above the age of 18 years. Apps like iFood or Rappi, if you noticed, Rappi was also in Argentina. We just talked about it. iFood is the largest in Brazil. Rappi is the second largest. I know this is strange to us, right? Because we probably never even heard of these. They are the two biggest delivery platforms in the whole country of Brazil. And if you're not familiar, Brazil has a huge population. It is a crazy populated place. So, but both of them have attempted to combat child labor with the introduction of technological safeguards, particularly facial recognition. We know from Europe that facial recognition doesn't work. The last that we knew, it was 65 or 70% accurate with people of color, with females. At night, the accuracy went way down. Again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about we're just trying to outpace technology, and we can't do that. But the problem has persisted in Brazil as workers find ways to circumvent the rules. Facing pressure from authorities to eradicate child labor and lacking a fully dependable tech solution, iFood and Rappi now also rely on facial recognition of a different sort. They ask customers and restaurants to report underage delivery workers. I got to ask, though, at this point, if you're a customer, or especially if you're a restaurant, I kind of go with the original part of what we were talking about here. I have a feeling they're not going to report it because they don't want to get into any trouble and have their restaurant. It's better for the, how do I put this? It's almost better for the restaurant to turn a blind eye to the problem than to try and help fix it. And there's no incentive. There's no reason other than these, just, it's a little more subtle down there, but it's the same way that our platforms try and get media attention out of everything. So they think that they're like, well, we're telling customers and restaurants to report these minors. Well, okay, let's see the statistics on how many are doing it, because my guess is it's next to none. I mean, unless you had, maybe if you're a customer and if a child dropped your food off and then like stole something or something else happened, maybe you'd report that then and say, I don't think he was even 18. But that's another thing too. Do you really want to be in there and gauging somebody's age? You might be wrong. But so, so Brazil has a data out that there is approximately 1.8 million children and adolescents working across Brazil. Now, that is saying under 18, and you can't work there till you're 18. So they have 1.8 million children and adolescents working under the table or under other people's accounts. And it's not just gig work either. They have other ways that this kind of stuff goes down in Brazil. Part of my knowledge of Brazil is I've been there a handful of times to do laser shows. So, and I've been once to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, and to many other places, but I can say that Brazil is a lot different than the other places. Brazil, it just has a different way of how the people interact with their government. And I bring this up because, again, we were just talking about how Argentina's pushing for this. Now these platforms are trying very hard because they're getting some pressure. But to be honest, I guess my takeaway from this is I'm surprised the government is even putting pressure on this. So they must be something must be good happening for them, because usually the government just stays out of it. Not to say that they don't do anything, because they have a very strict government down there when they want to, but they also have a way of turning a blind eye when they want to. I have become familiar with this, and yeah. But anyway, guys, that's just kind of what's going on around. That was Australia, that was Argentina, and that was Brazil.